Picture this: 3 beautiful princesses, once the pride of their kingdom, now wild-eyed and disheveled, tearing through the streets of ancient Argos. Their royal gowns are in tatters, their hair a tangled mess. They shriek and howl, convinced they've been transformed into cows. This is no ordinary madness. This is divine punishment, a curse from the gods themselves. But what could have provoked such wrath? And what does this ancient tale tell us about the complex relationship between gods and mortals in Greek mythology? Welcome to the tragic story of Anaxagoras' madness, a tale of hubris, divine retribution, and the devastating consequences of angering the gods. Our story begins in the sun-drenched kingdom of Argos, ruled by King Protus. The king was blessed with 3 daughters, Lysippe, Iphano, and Iphianassa. These princesses were renowned throughout Greece for their beauty, grace, and royal bearing. But as we'll soon see, even the most blessed can fall victim to the capricious nature of the gods. Now, you might be wondering, who is Anaxagoras? In this context, Anaxagoras isn't a person, but rather another name for King Protus himself. Some versions of the myth refer to the madness afflicting his daughters as Anaxagoras madness, linking the king's name to the tragic fate that befell his children. As our princesses grew into young women, they became not just beautiful, but prideful. They began to believe their own hype, so to speak. In some versions of the myth, they committed a grave offense against the goddess Hera. They dared to claim that their father's palace was more splendid than Hera's temple. In other tellings, they refused to participate in the worship of Dionysus, the god of wine and ecstasy. Now, if there's one consistent theme in Greek mythology, it's this: never, ever compare yourself favorably to the gods. It never ends well. The gods of Olympus were a jealous and vengeful lot, quick to anger and devastating in their punishments. And so it was with our unfortunate princesses. Hera, the queen of the gods, was furious at their disrespect. Known for her quick temper and harsh punishments, she decided to teach these mortal girls a lesson they'd never forget. With a wave of her divine hand, she cast a curse of madness upon the 3 sisters. In other versions, it was Dionysus who punished the girls for refusing to join his cult. The god of wine and revelry had a dark side, and those who spurned his worship often found themselves driven to madness. Regardless of which deity cast the curse, the effect was the same. The once poised and graceful princesses were suddenly gripped by an uncontrollable frenzy. They tore off their fine clothes, abandoned their royal duties, and fled the palace, running wild through the streets of Argos. But their madness took a peculiar form. The princesses became convinced they had been transformed into cows. They began to moo and low, pawing at the ground and trying to graze on grass. They fled the city, roaming the countryside, terrifying the local farmers and wreaking havoc wherever they went. Imagine the shock and horror of the people of Argos. These were their princesses, the daughters of their king, now reduced to this pitiful state. The once proud King Protus was devastated. He watched helplessly as his beloved daughters lost their minds and their humanity. The madness of the princesses didn't just affect them. It spread like a contagion through the women of Argos. Soon, other women began to abandon their homes and families, joining the princesses in their wild rampage across the land. The kingdom was thrown into chaos. Protus was desperate to find a cure for his daughters. He sent word far and wide, seeking anyone who could break the divine curse. But who could undo the work of the gods? Enter Melampus, a legendary seer and healer. Melampus was known for his ability to understand the language of animals and his skill in purification rituals. When he heard of the plight of the princesses, he saw an opportunity. Melampus approached King Protus with an offer. He would cure the princesses in exchange for 1/3 of the kingdom. Protus, in his desperation, refused. The price was too high. But as time passed and the madness worsened, spreading to more and more women of Argos, Protus became increasingly desperate. When Melampus returned, he had raised his price. Now he demanded 2/3 of the kingdom, 1/3 for himself and 1/3 for his brother. With no other choice, Protus agreed. Melampus set to work, performing elaborate purification rituals. He used his knowledge of herbs and his mystical abilities to gradually bring the princesses back to sanity. Some versions of the myth say he chased the women with a group of strong young men, eventually driving them into a temple where he performed the healing ritual. Slowly but surely, the princesses regained their senses. They stopped believing they were cows, ceased their wild behavior, and returned to their human selves. The contagion of madness that had spread through the women of Argos was also cured. But the story doesn't end there. The experience had profoundly changed the princesses. They were humbled by their ordeal, no longer the prideful young women who had dared to compare themselves to the gods. They dedicated themselves to the worship of Hera or Dionysus, depending on the version, ensuring they would never again provoke divine wrath. As for Melampus, he became a powerful figure in Argos, ruling over 2/3 of the kingdom alongside Protus. His descendants would go on to play important roles in other Greek myths. So what can we learn from this ancient tale? First and foremost, it's a stark warning about the dangers of hubris. The Greeks believed that excessive pride or self-confidence would invariably lead to nemesis, divine retribution. This theme appears again and again in Greek mythology, from the tale of Arachne, who boasted she could weave better than Athene, to the story of Niobe, who bragged about having more children than Leto. The myth also highlights the Greeks' complex relationship with their gods. The Olympian deities were not distant, benevolent figures, but active participants in mortal affairs, quick to anger and harsh in their punishments. This story reminds us that in the Greek worldview, mortals were always at the mercy of divine whims. Moreover, the tale explores the thin line between sanity and madness. The Greeks were fascinated by the concept of mania, divine madness, which could be both a curse and a source of inspiration. The madness of the princesses, while a punishment, also connects them to the divine in a twisted way. The story of Anaxagoras' madness has inspired artists and writers for centuries. It's been depicted in ancient Greek vase paintings, referenced in classical literature, and reinterpreted by modern authors. The image of the wild, cow-like princesses continues to captivate our imagination, reminding us of the enduring power of these ancient tales. In the end, the myth of Anaxagoras' madness is more than just a cautionary tale about respecting the gods. It's a complex exploration of pride, punishment, and redemption. It reminds us of the fragility of the human mind and the transformative power of humility. And perhaps most importantly, it shows us that even in the face of divine punishment, there's always hope for healing and redemption. As we reflect on this ancient story, we might ask ourselves, how do we balance confidence with humility in our own lives? How do we respond when faced with circumstances beyond our control? And what will we be willing to sacrifice to save those we love from suffering? These are the questions that have made Greek mythology endure for thousands of years. They speak to fundamental human experiences and emotions that resonate across time and cultures. The madness of Anaxagoras' daughters might seem far removed from our modern world, but the themes it explores, pride, punishment, desperation, and redemption, are as relevant today as they were in ancient Greece. So the next time you feel tempted to boast about your achievements or compare yourself favorably to others, remember the tale of the princesses of Argos. A little humility might just save you from mooing your Imagine a love so strong it could withstand a 20-year separation. This is the tale of Penelope and Odysseus, a story of unwavering loyalty in the face of divine temptation. When Odysseus, the clever king of Ithaca, set sail for Troy, he left behind his devoted wife Penelope and their infant son. Little did they know their separation would last 2 decades. As Odysseus faced monsters and gods on his journey home, Penelope fought her own battles. Besieged by suitors wanting her hand and kingdom, she used her wit to keep them at bay. She promised to choose a new husband once she finished weaving a shroud, but each night she secretly undid her day's work. Meanwhile, Odysseus found himself trapped on the island of the enchanting nymph Calypso. She offered him immortality and eternal youth, but Odysseus longed for home and his mortal wife. Even Calypso's divine beauty couldn't sway his heart. The gods finally intervened, forcing Calypso to release Odysseus. After many trials, he returned to Ithaca in disguise. Penelope, ever cautious, tested the stranger claiming to be her husband. Only when he proved his identity did she embrace him, their reunion a testament to the power of true love and fidelity. This timeless story reminds us that real love can overcome any obstacle, be it time, distance, or even the allure of godly temptation. What would you sacrifice for love? Would you betray your family, your city, your entire world? This is the story of a princess who did just that, forever changing the course of history. In the world of ancient Greece, where gods and mortals intertwined, stood the mighty city of Troy. Its towering walls, said to be built by the gods themselves, had withstood countless sieges. But as we'll soon discover, sometimes the greatest threat comes from within. Our tale begins in the 10th year of the Trojan War, a conflict that had raged for a decade, pitting the great heroes of Greece against the defenders of Troy. The war had started when Paris, a Trojan prince, stole away with Helen, the wife of a Greek king. Now, the shores of Troy were lined with 1,000 Greek ships, their warriors determined to bring Helen home and Troy to its knees. But our story isn't about Helen, Paris, or the famous heroes like Achilles and Hector. It's about a lesser-known figure, Laodicea, a Trojan princess, daughter of King Priam and Queen Hecuba. Laodicea was known for her beauty and her devotion to Troy. Yet, fate had other plans for her. One day, as Laodicea stood on the walls of Troy, watching the battle rage below, her eyes met those of a Greek warrior. This was no ordinary soldier, but Achames, son of Theseus, a hero in his own right. In that moment, something sparked between them, a connection that would soon blossom into a forbidden love. Despite the war that divided them, Laodicea and Achames found ways to meet in secret. They shared stolen moments away from the prying eyes of both Trojans and Greeks. With each encounter, their love grew stronger, and so did Laodicea's in a conflict. On one side stood her loyalty to Troy, her family, and everything she had ever known. On the other, a love so powerful it seemed to transcend the bitter war around them. Laodicea was torn, caught between two worlds, two loyalties. As the war dragged on, the situation in Troy grew desperate. Food was scarce, morale was low, and the once impenetrable walls began to show signs of wear. The Greek army, led by the clever Odysseus, had come up with a new strategy, a giant wooden horse, presented as a gift to the Trojans. Most Trojans saw the horse as a sign of Greek surrender, a tribute to their endurance. But Laodicea knew better. In one of their secret meetings, Achames had revealed the truth. The horse was a trap, filled with Greek warriors waiting to strike. Now, Laodicea faced the most difficult decision of her life. Should she warn her people, potentially saving Troy but losing Achames forever? Or should she keep the secret, betraying her city for a chance at love and a new life in Greece? In the end, love won out. When night fell and the city slept, Laodicea made her way to the gates of Troy. With trembling hands, she unlocked them, allowing Achames and his fellow Greeks to enter the city undetected. What followed was a night of terror and destruction. The Greeks poured out of the wooden horse, catching the Trojans completely off guard. The city that had stood for centuries fell in a single night. The screams of the dying and the roar of flames filled the air as Troy burned. Laodicea watched in horror as her home crumbled around her. The full weight of her decision crashed down upon her. She had saved her love, but at what cost? Her family, her people, everything she had ever known was being destroyed before her eyes. In the chaos of the falling city, Laodicea and Achames managed to escape. They boarded a Greek ship, setting sail for a new life together. But as Troy faded into the distance, shrouded in smoke and flame, Laodicea was haunted by the consequences of her actions. The story of Laodicea and the fall of Troy raises profound questions about the nature of love, loyalty, and the choices we make. Was Laodicea right to follow her heart, even at the cost of her city's destruction? Or should duty and loyalty to one's people always come first? These are not just questions for the ancient world. Even today, we often find ourselves torn between conflicting loyalties, between love and duty, between personal desires and societal expectations. Laodicea's tale reminds us that our choices, especially in matters of the heart, can have far-reaching consequences. The fall of Troy marked the end of an era in Greek mythology. It was a pivotal moment that spawned countless other stories: the wanderings of Odysseus, the tragedy of Agamemnon, the founding of Rome by Aeneas. And at the heart of it all was Laodicea's fateful decision. In the years that followed, Laodicea's story was told and retold. Some portrayed her as a tragic heroine, torn between love and duty. Others saw her as a cautionary tale about the dangers of betrayal. Greek playwrights and poets would revisit her story, exploring the complexities of her choice and its aftermath. The tale of Laodicea and the fall of Troy has echoed through the centuries, inspiring artists, writers, and thinkers. It has been depicted in ancient pottery, Renaissance paintings, and modern literature. The image of Troy burning, with Laodicea and Achames fleeing by ship, has become an enduring symbol of love's power to both create and destroy. But perhaps the most important legacy of Laodicea's story is how it reflects our own struggles with difficult choices. We may not be princesses or warriors, and the fate of cities may not hang in the balance, but we all face moments where we must choose between competing loyalties. Do we follow our hearts, even if it means hurting those close to us? Do we prioritize our own happiness over our obligations to others? These are questions that Laodicea grappled with, and they are questions that we still grapple with today. In the end, the story of Laodicea opening the gates of Troy is more than just a tale from Greek mythology. It's a reflection on the human condition, on the choices we make, and the prices we pay for them. It reminds us that love, while powerful and often beautiful, can also lead to devastating consequences. As we reflect on Laodicea's choice, we're invited to consider our own lives. What would we do in her position? What are we willing to sacrifice for love? And how do we balance our personal desires with our responsibilities to others? These are not easy questions to answer, but by exploring stories like Laodicea's, we gain insights into our own nature. We see the complexity of human emotions, the weight of our decisions, and the far-reaching impacts of our actions. The fall of Troy may have happened in the realm of myth, but the dilemmas it presents are very real. In Laodicea's story, we see our own struggles reflected. We see the power of love, the pain of betrayal, and the eternal conflict between heart and duty. As we close this chapter of Greek mythology, let's carry with us the lessons of Laodicea. Let's remember that our choices matter, that love is powerful but also potentially destructive, and that the line between right and wrong is often blurrier than we'd like to admit. In the end, Laodicea's tale, like all great myths, doesn't give us easy answers. Instead, it prompts us to question, to reflect, and to strive for wisdom in our own lives. And perhaps that, more than anything, is why these ancient stories continue to captivate us, millennia after they were first. What if I told you that flipping through TV channels could actually mean switching between entirely different versions of reality? Buckle up, because we're about to explore a world where this mind-bending possibility is our new normal. Imagine waking up tomorrow with a remote control that doesn't just change channels, but alters the very fabric of your reality. With each click, you're transporting to a different version of your life, a parallel universe where things played out differently. It's not just your personal life that's affected. You can surf through alternate histories, futures, and even fantastical realms that defy our current laws of physics. At first glance, this ability seems like a dream come true. Curious about how your life would have turned out if you'd taken that job in Tokyo. Click. Wonder what the world would look like if the dinosaurs never went extinct. Click. Want to experience a reality where humans have evolved gills and live underwater. Click. The possibilities are literally endless. But let's dive deeper into the implications of this reality surfing ability. One of the most immediate and obvious consequences would be a revolution in the entertainment industry. Traditional TV and movies would become obsolete overnight. Why watch a scripted show when you can experience countless real alternate realities? The concept of binge watching would take on a whole new meaning as people spend hours, even days, exploring different versions of reality. However, this leads us to a less obvious but potentially more significant effect: the psychological impact of seeing alternate versions of our lives. Imagine witnessing a reality where you made different choices and ended up significantly happier, more successful, or with a completely different family. How would this knowledge affect your mental health and satisfaction with your current reality? This brings us to an intriguing second-order effect, a fundamental shift in how we make decisions. With the ability to peek into the outcomes of different choices, would we become paralyzed by the weight of infinite possibilities? Or would we become more confident in our decisions, having seen the potential outcomes? The very nature of free will and determinism would be called into question. But here's where things get really interesting. What if, in the process of surfing through realities, we discover that our actions in one reality can have ripple effects in others? This could lead to the emergence of reality brokers, individuals or organizations that specialize in navigating and manipulating the complex web of interconnected realities. Take a moment to consider the ethical implications. If you could prevent a tragedy in another reality by making a small change in your own, would you do it? What if that change negatively impacted your life? The moral dilemmas would be unprecedented and could reshape our entire concept of ethics and responsibility. Now, let's explore a surprising second-order effect: the potential development of a universal language. As people interact with countless alternate realities, the need for a common means of communication across all these variations would become crucial. This could lead to the evolution of a new language that transcends individual realities, fundamentally changing how we communicate and think. But it's not all rosy in this multi-reality world. Consider the possibility of addiction to reality surfing. People might become so obsessed with exploring alternate lives that they neglect their primary reality. We might see the rise of reality rehab centers to help individuals reconnect with their original timeline. And here's a twist you might not have considered: the emergence of a new economy based on reality data. Imagine companies that specialize in collecting and selling information from different realities. Want to know the winning lottery numbers in 1,000 different realities? There's a company for that. Need to research how a particular business decision plays out across multiple timelines? There's a service for that too. But with great power comes great responsibility, and the ability to surf realities could have serious geopolitical implications. What if governments start using this technology for espionage or to gain strategic advantages? We could see the dawn of reality-based warfare, where conflicts are fought not just in our world, but across multiple versions of it. On a more personal level, how would this ability affect our sense of identity? If you can experience being countless versions of yourself, which one is the real you? The concept of a fixed personal identity might become obsolete, replaced by a more fluid understanding of self that spans multiple realities. Let's not forget the scientific implications. Physicists would have a field day studying the mechanics of reality surfing. It could lead to breakthroughs in our understanding of quantum mechanics, the multiverse theory, and the very nature of consciousness. We might discover that consciousness itself is the key to navigating between realities. But here's a mind-bending possibility. What if we discover that our reality is just one channel that someone else is surfing through? It could completely upend our understanding of free will and the nature of existence itself. As we surf through these possibilities, we must also consider the potential for unforeseen consequences. What if constant reality switching starts to destabilize the fabric of the multiverse? We might need to develop reality conservation practices to prevent the collapse of the entire system. On a lighter note, imagine the impact on pop culture. Reality crossover events could become the new trend, with people organizing parties where everyone brings elements from different realities they've visited. Fashion would explode with influences from countless alternate worlds. But let's circle back to a crucial question. How would this ability change our appreciation for our own reality? Will we become more grateful for what we have, seeing the infinite possibilities of what could have been? Or would we become eternally dissatisfied, always wondering if the grass is greener in another reality? As we wrap up our journey through this hypothetical multiverse, it's clear that the ability to channel surf through realities would fundamentally reshape every aspect of our existence. From our personal lives to our societal structures, from our understanding of science to our concept of morality, nothing would remain untouched. So the next time you pick up your TV remote, take a moment to appreciate the simplicity of just changing channels. Because in a world where each click could transport you to a different reality, the simple act of watching TV would never be the same again. And here's a final thought to keep you up at night. In an infinite multiverse of possibilities, who's to say this reality surfing scenario isn't already happening? Maybe, just maybe, you're already unknowingly surfing through realities. The question is, which channel are you on? Have you ever wondered why life seems harder now than in the good old days? Greek mythology has an answer. Picture this, a world of perpetual spring where humans lived among the gods. This was the golden age, created by Cronus. People knew neither toil nor sorrow, living in perfect harmony. But nothing lasts forever. Zeus overthrew Cronus, ushering in the Silver Age. Humans now aged, needing shelter and food. They lived 100 years as children, but their adult lives were short and marked by foolishness. Dissatisfied, Zeus created the Bronze Age. These humans were strong and warlike, forging weapons and bringing violence to the world. Finally came our age, the Iron Age. Here, virtue is scarce, and hardship is plenty. We must work constantly to survive, facing disease, war, and famine. This myth reflects the Greek view of history as a gradual decline. Each metal symbolizes the decreasing value of human life and morality. Yet, hope remains. Even in our Iron Age, we can strive for the virtues of the Golden Age. The myth challenges us. In a world of iron, can we find the gold within ourselves? Imagine a world where mortals could challenge the gods themselves. Welcome to ancient Greece, where the Olympic Games were born, a testament to human strength, divine honor, and the unbreakable bond between gods and men. Our story begins over 2,700 years ago in the sacred sanctuary of Olympia. Here, nestled in the western Peloponnese, a tradition was about to unfold that would shape the course of human history. But why here? Why now? To understand, we must look to the king of the gods himself, Zeus. Zeus, lord of the sky and ruler of Mount Olympus, was revered above all others in the Greek pantheon. His power was unmatched, his wisdom unparalleled, and it was in his honor that the first Olympic Games were held. Legend has it that Zeus once wrestled his own father, Cronus, for control of the universe. Their epic battle shook the foundations of the earth, and when Zeus emerged victorious, he established his reign over gods and mortals alike. This triumph became the inspiration for the games that would bear his name. But the Olympics weren't just about honoring Zeus. They were a way for mortals to prove their worth, to push the boundaries of human potential, and perhaps, for a fleeting moment, to touch the divine. Picture the scene. A hot summer day in 776 BCE. The air is thick with anticipation as athletes from all over Greece gather in Olympia. They've trained for years, honing their bodies and minds for this moment. Among them stands Korobos, a humble cook from the nearby city of Elis. Little does he know, he's about to make history. As the games begin, a hush falls over the crowd. The first event is announced, a foot race, a single sprint across the stadium. Korobos takes his place at the starting line, his heart pounding in his chest. The signal is given, and he explodes into action. His feet barely touch the ground as he flies across the dusty track. The world around him blurs, and for those few precious seconds, Korobos feels the power of the gods coursing through his veins. He crosses the finish line first, becoming the very first Olympic champion in recorded history. But this was just the beginning. Over the next 5 days, athletes would compete in a variety of events, each designed to showcase different aspects of human excellence. There was wrestling, where competitors grappled in the scorching sun, their bodies slick with olive oil. The discus throw, where athletes launched a heavy stone disc, aiming for distance and precision. And the long jump, where competitors leapt with weights in their hands, defying gravity itself. Yet the most prestigious event was the pentathlon, a grueling test of all-around athletic ability. It combined running, jumping, wrestling, discus throwing, and javelin throwing. The winner of this event was considered the ultimate athlete, a mortal who had achieved a level of perfection worthy of the gods themselves. As the games progressed, something remarkable happened. The competition transcended mere physical prowess. It became a celebration of the human spirit, a showcase of determination, discipline, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. But the Olympics were more than just a sporting event. They were a sacred ritual, a time when all of Greece came together in peace. During the Games, a sacred truce was declared. Wars were suspended, and athletes could travel safely to Olympia. This Olympic peace was so revered that it was said even the gods observed it. The Games were also a time of great cultural exchange. Poets recited epic tales of heroes and gods. Philosophers engaged in heated debates about the nature of existence. Artists created stunning sculptures and paintings, capturing the beauty and power of the human form. The Olympics became a melting pot of ideas, a crucible where Greek culture was forged and refined. As night fell on the final day of the Games, the victors were crowned, but they didn't receive gold medals or cash prizes. Instead, they were adorned with olive wreaths, cut from the sacred trees of Zeus himself. These simple crowns were worth more than any treasure, for they symbolized divine favor and immortal glory. The impact of the Olympic Games extended far beyond the borders of Greece. As the tradition grew, it spread throughout the ancient world. The Games became a model for other athletic competitions, inspiring similar events in Rome, Egypt, and beyond. But perhaps the most enduring legacy of the ancient Olympics is the ideal they represent. The Games embodied the Greek concept of arete, the pursuit of excellence in all aspects of life. This philosophy wasn't just about winning, it was about becoming the best version of oneself, physically, mentally, and morally. The ancient Olympics continued for nearly 12 centuries, surviving wars, political upheavals, and the rise and fall of empires. They were finally abolished in 393 CE by the Roman Emperor Theodosius I, who saw them as a pagan ritual incompatible with Christian beliefs. Yet the spirit of the Olympics refused to die. It lay dormant for centuries, waiting for the right moment to resurface. That moment came in 1896, when the modern Olympic Games were born. Inspired by the ancient tradition, these new games sought to recapture the glory and ideals of their predecessors. Today, the Olympic Games continue to captivate the world. Every 4 years, athletes from across the globe come together, just as they did in ancient Olympia. They compete not just for medals, but for the chance to write their names in the annals of history, to join the ranks of heroes who have pushed the limits of human achievement. As we watch modern Olympians perform seemingly impossible feats, we're connected to those ancient Greeks who first gathered to honor Zeus. We're reminded that the human spirit is capable of incredible things, that with dedication and perseverance, we can all touch the divine. The story of the first Olympic Games is more than just a tale from Greek mythology. It's a testament to the enduring power of human ambition, the unifying force of friendly competition, and the timeless quest for excellence. It reminds us that even in our modern world, we're not so different from those ancient athletes who stood in the shadow of Mount Olympus, reaching for the sky. So the next time you watch the Olympics, remember Korobos and his fellow athletes. Remember the sacred olive groves of Zeus and the hallowed grounds of Olympia. For in those moments of sporting brilliance, we're not just witnessing a competition, we're participating in a tradition that has shaped human civilization for nearly 3 millennia. The Olympic flame continues to burn brightly, a beacon of hope and inspiration for all humanity. It challenges us to be faster, higher, and stronger, not just in sports, but in all aspects of our lives. And in doing so, it keeps alive the spirit of those first games, where mortals dared to compete. Imagine being offered eternal life, youth, and the love of a goddess. Now imagine turning it all down. Sounds crazy, right? But that's exactly what one of ancient Greece's greatest heroes did. This is the story of Odysseus and Calypso, a tale of temptation, loyalty, and the power of home. Our story begins on the shores of a mystical island called Ogygia, hidden somewhere in the vast expanse of the Mediterranean Sea. It's here that we find our hero, Odysseus, legendary king of Ithaca and veteran of the Trojan War. But he's not the triumphant warrior you might expect. Instead, he's a shipwrecked sailor, the lone survivor of yet another disaster in his long and troubled journey home. As Odysseus drags himself onto the beach, exhausted and alone, he has no idea that he's about to face one of the greatest challenges of his epic odyssey. For this island is the home of Calypso, a powerful nymph whose name means to conceal. And conceal she will, keeping Odysseus hidden from the world for 7 long years. Now, you might be wondering, who exactly is Calypso? In Greek mythology, she's the daughter of the Titan Atlas, forced to hold up the sky for eternity. Calypso is a complex figure, part goddess, part nymph, with the power to enchant mortals and even grant immortality. She's beautiful beyond compare, with a voice so sweet it could make the birds stop singing to listen. When Calypso finds Odysseus on her shore, she's immediately smitten. Here, at last, is a companion to share her isolated existence. She takes him to her cave, a palace of crystal columns and blooming vines, where fountains of pure water flow and the air is always sweet with the scent of cedar and incense. Calypso offers Odysseus everything: comfort, luxury, and her undying love. She even promises him the ultimate gift: immortality. Imagine never growing old, never fearing death, living forever in a paradise with a beautiful goddess. It's an offer that would tempt even the strongest-willed mortal. But Odysseus is no ordinary mortal. He's the man of 1,000 tricks, the great strategist of the Trojan War, and the king who's been trying to return to his kingdom for a decade. More importantly, he's a man with a wife waiting for him back home. Penelope, Odysseus' wife, is a legend in her own right. For 20 years, she's been fending off suitors who want to claim Odysseus' throne, believing him dead. She's used every trick in the book to stay faithful, including weaving a burial shroud by day and unraveling it by night, promising to choose a new husband only when the shroud is finished. It's the thought of Penelope that keeps Odysseus going. Every day he sits on the shore of Calypso's island, staring out at the sea, his eyes filled with tears as he longs for home. He's surrounded by beauty and offered eternal life, but his heart remains in Ithaca. This stalemate continues for 7 years. 7 years of Calypso's love and Odysseus' refusal. 7 years of luxury and longing. But the gods of Olympus are watching, and they're about to intervene. Athene, the goddess of wisdom and Odysseus' divine patron, pleads his case to Zeus, king of the gods. She argues that it's not right for a mortal hero to be kept against his will, even by a goddess. Zeus agrees and sends Hermes, the messenger god, to Ogygia with orders for Calypso to release Odysseus. Imagine the scene: Hermes, with his winged sandals, flying across the sea to this hidden island. He lands on the shore and makes his way to Calypso's cave. The nymph is not happy to see him. She knows why he's there, and she's not ready to give up her mortal love. Calypso argues passionately. She points out the unfairness of the gods, who allow themselves to take mortal lovers but forbid goddesses from keeping mortal men. She reminds them that she saved Odysseus when no one else would, nursing him back to health and offering him a life of eternal bliss. But the will of Zeus cannot be denied. With a heavy heart, Calypso accepts the divine decree. She goes to Odysseus, who's sitting on the beach as usual, gazing towards home. For the first time in 7 years, she tells him he's free to leave. Now, here's where the story gets really interesting. Calypso doesn't just tell Odysseus he can go, she offers to help him leave. She provides him with tools to build a raft, supplies for the journey, and even favorable winds to speed him on his way. It's a testament to her love that even in letting him go, she seeks to protect him. But before Odysseus leaves, Calypso makes one last attempt to persuade him to stay. She reminds him of what he's giving up: eternal youth, immortality, and her undying love. She warns him of the dangers he'll face on his journey home and the uncertain welcome that might await him after so many years away. In response, Odysseus gives a speech that's become one of the most famous in all of Greek literature. He acknowledges Calypso's beauty and the temptation of her offer. But then he says something profound. He would rather die as a mortal, surrounded by his family and people, than live forever in isolation. This moment captures the essence of what makes Odysseus a hero in Greek mythology. It's not just his strength or cunning, but his very human desires and his willingness to face mortality for the sake of love and home. He chooses the richness of mortal life with all its joys and sorrows, its triumphs and failures, over the static perfection of immortality. As Odysseus sets sail on his makeshift raft, Calypso stands on the shore watching him go. It's a bittersweet moment, the end of 7 years of love and the beginning of Odysseus' final journey home. The sea stretches out before him, full of dangers, but also full of promise. This story of Odysseus and Calypso is more than just a myth. It's a reflection on what it means to be human. It asks us to consider what we value most in life. Is it comfort and security? Or is it the connections we make with others, the sense of belonging to a place and a people? The tale has inspired countless works of art and literature over the centuries. Poets, painters, and sculptors have all tried to capture the moment of Odysseus' departure or Calypso's sorrow. The theme of temptation and the journey home has echoed through stories from ancient times to the present day. In our modern world, we might not face nymphs offering immortality, but we often find ourselves torn between comfort and challenge, between the easy path and the one that leads us back to our true selves. Odysseus' choice reminds us that sometimes the most heroic act is simply to remain true to who we are and where we come from. As we close this chapter of Odysseus' epic journey, we're left with a powerful message: that the love of home and family, the desire to live a full and meaningful life among our own people, can be stronger than even the temptation of eternal life. It's a reminder that in the end, it's not how long we live that matters, but how well we live and how true we stay to ourselves. Odysseus' story doesn't end here, of course. He still has many trials to face before he reaches Ithaca. But in this moment, as he sails away from Calypso's island, he's taken a crucial step. He's reaffirmed his identity, his values, and his ultimate goal. And in doing so, he's shown us all what it truly means to be a hero.
What if the entire universe existed within a single grain of sand? This mind-bending concept isn't just a flight of fancy, but a glimpse into the profound wisdom of ancient Hindu philosophy. Welcome to the world of the Upanishads, where the boundaries between the infinite and the finite blur, revealing the hidden nature of reality itself. The Upanishads are a collection of philosophical texts that form the theoretical foundation of Hindu spirituality. Composed over 2,500 years ago, these sacred scriptures contain some of the most profound insights into the nature of existence, consciousness, and the universe. At their core lies a revolutionary idea: the relationship between the bounded and the boundless, the finite and the infinite. Imagine you're standing on a vast, endless ocean. The water stretches as far as the eye can see in every direction. This ocean represents Brahman, the ultimate reality, infinite and all-encompassing. Now scoop up a handful of water. This handful represents you, me, and everything we perceive in our finite world. The Upanishads teach us that just as the water in your hand is identical to the water in the ocean, our individual consciousness is, in essence, the same as the infinite consciousness of Brahman. This concept is encapsulated in one of the most famous Upanishadic statements, tat-tvamasi, or that thou art. It means that your true self, your innermost essence, is one with the ultimate reality of the universe. It's a profound declaration of unity, suggesting that the divine is not something external or separate from us, but the very core of our being. But how can we, limited beings, comprehend the infinite? The Upanishads offer us a beautiful analogy. Picture a pot made of clay. The pot has a distinct shape, size, and purpose. It's finite and bounded, but what is it made of? Clay. The clay exists before the pot, gives the pot its form, and remains after the pot is broken. In this analogy, the clay represents Brahman, the infinite reality, while the pot represents all finite forms and beings in the universe. This brings us to another key teaching of the Upanishads, the concept of Maya, or illusion. Maya is what makes us perceive the world as separate, distinct entities rather than as manifestations of the same underlying reality. It's like watching a movie and getting so engrossed that you forget you're looking at a flat screen. The characters and events seem real and separate, but they're all projections of the same light source. The Upanishads don't just present these ideas as abstract philosophy. They bring them to life through dialogues and stories. One of the most famous is the conversation between the sage Uddalaka and his son Svetaketu. Uddalaka asks his son to bring him a fruit from a nearby banyan tree. He then asks Svetaketu to break it open. "What do you see inside?" Uddalaka asks. "Tiny seeds, father," Svetaketu replies. "Break one of the seeds open. What do you see now?" "Nothing, father." Uddalaka then delivers the profound lesson. "My son, that subtle essence which you do not perceive there, in that very essence stands the being of the huge banyan tree. In that which is the subtle essence, all that exists has its self. That is the true, that is the self, and you, Svetaketu, are that." This story beautifully illustrates how the infinite can exist within the finite, how the boundless can be found within the bounded. Just as the entire potential of a massive banyan tree exists within its tiny, seemingly empty seed, the infinite Brahman exists within each of us. But the Upanishads don't stop at mere philosophy. They offer practical wisdom for living in light of this profound truth. If we are all manifestations of the same infinite reality, then the barriers between us are illusory. This realization naturally leads to compassion, unity, and a sense of interconnectedness with all beings. Moreover, understanding our true nature as infinite consciousness can free us from the limitations and fears that come with identifying solely with our finite bodies and minds. It's like a wave realizing it's not just a temporary form, but the entire ocean itself. This shift in perspective can bring about a profound sense of peace and fearlessness. The Upanishads also teach us about the nature of happiness. They argue that true, lasting happiness cannot come from finite, external sources. Instead, it arises from recognizing our infinite nature. It's like a thirsty person in a desert who discovers an oasis within themselves, an infinite wellspring of joy and fulfillment. However, the Upanishads acknowledge that this is not an easy truth to grasp or live by. Our senses and minds are naturally drawn to the finite world of forms and differences. That's why the texts emphasize the importance of spiritual practices like meditation, self-inquiry, and devotion. These practices are designed to peel away the layers of illusion and help us experience our true, infinite nature. One of the most powerful methods the Upanishads prescribe is the practice of neti, or not this, not this. It involves systematically negating all that is finite and changeable to arrive at what is infinite and unchanging. It's like peeling an onion layer by layer until you reach the core, or in this case, until you realize that you are the core itself. The relationship between the infinite and the finite as described in the Upanishads has profound implications for how we understand life, death, and the nature of reality. If our true self is infinite and eternal, then death loses its sting. The Upanishads compare it to a river merging with the ocean, not an end, but a return to our true, boundless nature. Moreover, this philosophy offers a unique perspective on the meaning of life. Instead of seeing life as a journey from birth to death, the Upanishads present it as an opportunity for self-realization, for the finite to recognize its infinite nature. It's like a game of cosmic hide-and-seek, where the infinite plays at being finite, only to rediscover its true self. As we conclude our exploration of this profound teaching, let's return to our initial question. What if the entire universe existed within a single grain of sand? The wisdom of the Upanishads suggests that this is not just a fanciful idea, but a profound truth about the nature of reality. The infinite exists within the finite, the boundless within the bounded, waiting to be discovered. In our modern world of fast-paced change and apparent fragmentation, the timeless wisdom of the Upanishads offers a refreshing perspective. It reminds us of our inherent unity, our boundless potential, and the profound peace that comes from recognizing our true nature. As we navigate the complexities of our finite existence, may we carry with us this eternal truth, that in our deepest essence we are infinite, we are boundless.